Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. European Council President Antonio Costa, Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen to arrive in India today to be Republic Day chief guests, boosting India-EU strategic ties. Russia-Ukraine officials meet in Abu Dhabi with US delegation. No peace deal reached. Talks to continue. United States imposes new sanctions on Iran's shadow fleet, increasing pressure over crackdown on protesters. UN Human Rights Council adopts motion for probe. US braces for extremely dangerous winter storm. 14 states under weather emergency. Flight services affected. Sports, Surya Kumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan shine as India beats New Zealand by 7 wickets, take 2-0 series lead. The President of European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, and President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will arrive in India today. The top EU leaders will be visiting India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The leaders will be the chief guests at the 77th Republic Day celebrations. During the visit, leaders will also co-chair the 16th India-EU Summit on January 27th. During the visit, President Costa and President von der Leyen will meet President Draupadi Murmu and hold restricted and delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Modi. An India-EU Business Forum is also expected to be organized on the sidelines of the India-EU Summit. India and European Union are strategic partners since 2004. The 15th India-EU Summit was held virtually on 15 July 2020. Bilateral ties have expanded and deepened across a wide range of areas, particularly following the historical visit of EU College of Commissioners to India in February of 2025. Participation of EU leaders as chief guest at the 77th Republic Day and the 16th India-EU Summit will further deepen India-EU strategic partnership and advance collaboration in priority areas of mutual interest. The High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of European Commission, Kaja Kallas, arrived in India. The visit comes at an opportune moment to further strengthen India-EU strategic partnership, building on momentum of regular high-level engagements. Earlier on January 21st, the EU's highest-ranking diplomat, Kaja Kallas, noted that EU is among India's largest trading partners and described India as indispensable to Europe's economic resilience.
The EU and India are moving closer together at the time when the rules-based international order is under unprecedented pressure through wars, coercion and economic fragmentation. Two major democracies cannot afford to hesitate. We must become more ambitious partners.
She also announced that both India and EU agreed to sign a new security and defense partnership covering maritime security, cyber security and counterterrorism.
We aim to conclude negotiations on the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. This deal will open markets, remove barriers and strengthen critical supply chains in clean technologies, pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. Second, today we agreed to move forward with the signature of a new EU-India security and defence partnership in areas like maritime security, cybersecurity and counterterrorism. We will also launch negotiations on a security of information agreement. In a more dangerous world, we will both gain from working closer together. We also intend to conclude a memorandum of understanding on comprehensive framework on cooperation on mobility. This will facilitate movement for seasonal workers, students, researchers and highly skilled professionals while promoting research and innovation.
Moving on, from Greenland to Gaza, geoeconomics dominated the World Economic Forum, which came to a conclusion on Friday. The next report has details of everything that transpired at Davos.
Geopolitics took the center stage at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos amid uncertainty over Gaza Board of Peace and tensions related to Greenland. Underlining these differences, World Economic Forum CEO urged for continued dialogue.
Sometimes we really see strong disagreements. That's okay, because the purpose of the week and the forum's work over the year is to create a trusted space for dialogue. Dialogue is a prerequisite for moving the world forward. If you don't even have a dialogue, you will not see any results.
The Greenland issue had reached a breaking point, but US President Donald Trump stepped back from his threat of tariffs on 8 European nations, ruled out using force to take Greenland, which is a semi-autonomous territory of NATO ally Denmark, and suggested a deal was in sight to end the dispute.
People thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland.
Trump also signed the charter of his Board of Peace, which he has built as a body for resolving global conflicts. He unveiled his new Gaza plan, describing Gaza as great real estate. Trump called for an end to the Ukraine war after a meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky. Leaders also touched upon crucial trade agreements, with EU chief Ursula von der Leyen saying that India and the bloc were close to conclude a free trade agreement.
We are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. One that would create a market of 2 billion people, accounting for almost a quarter of global GDP.
Highlighting India's growth trajectory, Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology Ashwini Vaishnav said that global confidence in the country's tech industry was evident at Davos.
We will definitely become the third largest economy. What's working very well is the last decade of very transformational change which has happened in our country, and it's a very well thought through, well defined and very focused execution.
Over 65 heads of state and government attended this year's World Economic Forum. Bureau Report, DD India.
Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology Ashwini Vaishnav visited the headquarters of ASML in the Netherlands on Friday. Speaking during the visit, the minister said India has started a new semiconductor industry and that lithography, which involves printing the circuit on the wafer, is the most complex and precision-intensive process in the entire semiconductor manufacturing chain.
When we started the semiconductor mission on 1st Jan 2022, we had taken a target that within 5 years we should start the commercial production. Very glad to say that the first commercial production will start in 2026 itself. Actually, 4 of the plants will start their commercial production in 2026. The pilot production have started already in 3 plants in 2025 itself. Now the equipment manufacturers are coming to India.
Very consistent across 5 layers of artificial intelligence stack.
India's strength in AI is very consistent across the 5 layers of the AI stack. Application layer, we will become the leaders. Models are today, our sovereign models are getting developed, which are very good and which have the capability of solving 95% of the problems. The committed investment, which might grow up to $150 billion as we approach the AI Impact Summit, and the final energy layer. All the 5 layers we are working very consistently.
The Indian Armed Forces will present a tri-service tableau, Operation Sindoor, Victory Through Jointness, during the 77th Republic Day Parade at Kartavya Path. The tableau would be compelling and authoritative representation of the nation's evolved military doctrine, marking a decisive transition to precision, integration and indigenous supremacy. Air Commodore Manish Sabharwal shared details about the tri-services tableau on Operation Sindoor with DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre.
After India's Operation Sindoor, this is for the first time the Indian Armed Forces will be marching on the Kartavya Path on 26th of January. And one of the most prominent attraction of this Republic Day parade is going to be this tableau. And a replica of that tableau is put here as well of the Operation Sindoor and how the jointness of the Indian Armed Forces, in fact, gave a massive blow to Pakistan and the terror infrastructure in the country. And to speak about this, we have Air Commodore Manish Sabharwal with us. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us. Can you tell us about the tableau and give some more information on this?
The theme of this tableau is Operation Sindoor, victory through jointness, and that is the motto of Headquarter IDS. So what you see in front of you is a portrayal of the 88 hours of Operation Sindoor, in which India achieved unsurmountable success. All the platforms that had taken part during that operation have been put on the tableau. For example, in the first night of operation, you knew that 9 terrorist hideouts have been destroyed simultaneously. So some of the equipment that took part in that is we use the army guns, that is the artillery guns, the Warmate kamikaze drone, and we also use Rafale with Scalp missiles to destroy the terrorist hideout. The same symbolic hideout has been portrayed right in between in the middle of the tableau. In the subsequent night, we destroyed their major military targets. For example, we used the Su-30's air-launched BrahMos missile, which you can see on your right, destroying one of the major air bases. The targets inside the hangar as well were destroyed, and some on the tarmac as well as the runway was destroyed. We have also tried to showcase the S-400's use in this operation, and also you'll be glad to know that first ever longest air kill, as was mentioned by the Chief of the Air Staff, has been achieved by us, and this is only because of our air defense networking, which for the first time had the army element also amalgamated, that is the Akash Tir and IACCS together. Yes, so that has been shown that the S-400 is destroying their AEWC aircraft. We have used the Herop also in destroying the Chinese-built HQ-9, their radar, and that has been showcased.
Jointness is being highlighted, how joint theaterization has worked, and perhaps even though the operation was, when it comes to hours, it was a relatively small one, but when it comes to impact, India has given a blow to a country as massive as Pakistan. It has nuclear armament, but still, the Indian Armed Forces have given a blow that Pakistan will never forget. Thank you so much for speaking with us, sir.
Thank you so much.
And this is, in fact, going to be one of the most important highlight of the 26th January parade this time around.
Indian authorities have flagged a fresh disinformation campaign after Pakistani propaganda handle circulated digitally manipulated video falsely attributed to Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi. According to the Press Information Bureau's fact-check unit, the viral clip is a deepfake, misleadingly showing Army Chief claiming that India is opposing Pakistan's inclusion in the so-called Gaza Peace Board. PIB clarified that the video has been digitally altered to create confusion on India's foreign policy stance. Officials have urged citizens to remain cautious, verify content from official sources, and avoid sharing unverified videos circulating on social media. President Draupadi Murmu greeted people of Uttar Pradesh on their statehood day and expressed confidence that it will grow to advance on the path of continuous progress. On social media platform X, she writes, and I quote, "I wish for a bright future for the hard-working and talented people of the state," unquote. Uttar Pradesh was earlier known as United Provinces. On January 24, 1950, it was recognized as Uttar Pradesh. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated the people of Uttar Pradesh on their Foundation Day, highlighting their invaluable contributions to the richness of Indian culture and heritage. Praising the rise of Uttar Pradesh from Bimaru to an exemplary state, Prime Minister expressed confidence in the state's potential, proving immensely valuable in keeping the nation's progress dynamic. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, says over 600 inmates have been released, far more than estimated by the rights groups. Western powers warn Haiti against changing the prime minister. Syrian Kurds hand over new prison to government as truce deadline looms.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In an effort to break the impasse, Russian, Ukrainian and US negotiators have held talks in the United Arab Emirates, the first meeting attended by all three countries in 4 years. Officials met in Abu Dhabi to tackle the vital issue of territory, with no sign of compromise as Russian airstrikes plunged Ukraine into its worst energy crisis of nearly 4-year conflict. The tripartite talks brokered by the US are unfolding against a backdrop of intensified Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy system that have cut power and heating to major cities such as Kiev. As temperatures dip well below freezing, head of Ukraine's top private power producer on Friday said the situation was nearing a humanitarian catastrophe and that Ukraine needs a ceasefire that holds attacks on energy infrastructure. However, the key sticking point in the trilateral meeting remains territorial issues, including Russia's demand that Ukraine gives up 20% of the Donetsk region, which Kiev still controls. Meanwhile, Zelensky refused to give up land that Russia has not been able to capture in 4 years of grinding attritional warfare. Polls show little appetite among Ukrainians for territorial concessions. The territory in question, Donetsk, is one of the 4 Ukrainian regions Moscow said in 2022 that it was annexing after referendums rejected by Kiev and Western nations as bogus. Most countries recognize Donetsk as part of Ukraine. And DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre joins us from New Delhi with more. Akshay, Russians and Ukrainians finally engage in direct talks, but territorial concession remains the sticking point. What are the possibilities ahead?
Well, Shubhendu, we are in the same sort of a situation that we were in the initial conflict as well, because the Donetsk region is in fact the sticking point. Now, Russia claims this region because the majority of population in this region speaks Russian. Many of them have also expressed their willingness to be merged with Russia as far as the territory is concerned, and what we are seeing at this point in time is the same continuation of that after years of that bloody war that has been raging on the Russian-Ukrainian front as well. So as far as the issue of territorial concession is concerned, it may be a demand that Russia is making so that more concessions can be made as far as the deal is concerned. So that before the deal is finalized, they have made a huge offer, a huge rather claim, so that the Russians could make some concession and the Ukrainians do make some concessions as well, in a way to leverage as far as getting a best deal out of this entire situation is concerned. However, the Ukrainian side in no way can give Donetsk region, because they consider it as a part of their own territory. They consider giving Donetsk as hampering their territorial integrity, irrespective of the kind of claims that are being made. But as far as a possibility of a peace deal is concerned, is only through demilitarization of the fronts of the two regions. Now, as far as the line is concerned, where the Russian military is operating and the Ukrainian forces are resisting the Russian forces, the claims are being made that in this proposed 20 plan deal that has been given by the US, both the sides will go about 40 kilometers back. The entire region will be made a special economic zone and will be demilitarized. And in that exchange to that, the Russians will agree to the Ukrainian getting into a peace and security agreement with the US and the European countries, which means that if Russia invades that region again, then Ukraine, along with US and Europe, can in fact retaliate. So Russia is giving a guarantee that gives the next region, and then there will be no more conflict in the region, and you can take guarantees from the US and the European countries as well. However, the Russian claims are being questioned in the Ukrainian government at this point in time.
Akshay, let's talk about the reality of the battleground. Russia has increased strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. What are you learning about the fighting on the ground?
Well, the drone strikes were recorded even after the trilateral meeting took place, which was in fact the first meeting between the three countries since the beginning of the conflict. So this is a huge move as far as any hope of ending this conflict is concerned, because at least the three sides have sat together and have discussed the peace deal that can be done in future. But both the sides remain consistently, adamant on their claims as far as the region is concerned, because Ukraine calls the Donetsk region, that has Donbass, that has Kherson, that has other parts as well, as their territory. However, Russians consider, and they have made claims long back that during the fall of Soviet Union they were wronged, and this territory should never have gone with Ukraine, because the people who live there speak Russian and not Ukrainian, and they consider themselves to be part of Russia, like they claimed in Crimea as well. So as far as the ground reality is concerned, at least even if the two sides think that a peace deal is going to be imminent and they will have to make certain concessions, both want to inflict as much damage as possible on the other side, and to show in a way a show of force. However, the Russian side is vastly overpowering the Ukrainian side, because obviously they are much bigger country. They have one of the largest nuclear stockpiles in the world. Ukraine, on the other hand, is not a nuclear country, so there is no power comparison between the two. However, when it comes to no nuclear use, with the support Ukraine is getting from Ukraine, Europe and US, they are resisting the Russian forces as well for a very long time.
Akshay, thank you for joining us with those inputs. Akshay Dongre getting us the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Moving on, the United States on Friday has imposed new series of sanctions targeting Iran's shadow fleet, said to be supporting the country's oil exports, as Washington steps up pressure over the government's crackdown on protesters. In statements, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the officials directly tied the sanctions on the 9 vessels and their respective owners or management firms. The department said fleet collectively transported hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Iranian oil and petroleum products to foreign markets. The Treasury said revenue belongs to the Iranian people, but is instead diverted to fund Iran's regional terrorist proxies, weapons programs, security services, instead of the basic economic services the Iranian people have bravely demanded. Meanwhile, a senior Iranian official on Friday said Iran will treat any attack as an all-out war against us ahead of the arrival of a US military aircraft carrier strike group and other assets in the Middle East in the coming days. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, officials said that military build-up, they hope it is not intended for real confrontation, as their military is ready for worst-case scenario. Earlier, US President Donald Trump said United States has an armada heading towards Iran, but hoped he would not have to use it, as it renewed warnings to Tehran against killing protesters or restarting its nuclear program. The United Nations Human Rights Council on Friday passed a motion extending an independent probe into human rights abuses in Iran and called for an urgent inquiry into the violent crackdown by authorities on protesters. The 47-member body voiced alarm about the unprecedented scale of the violent crackdown on peaceful protests by security forces in Iran. With 25 votes in favor, 7 opposed and rest abstaining, it decided to extend and broaden the mandate of independent investigators, gathering evidence towards ensuring accountability for rights violations in the country. During an emergency session of the Human Rights Council, the UN Rights Chief urged Iran on Friday to end its what it calls brutal repression of protests.
I call on the Iranian authorities to reconsider, to pull back and to end their brutal repression, including summary trials and disproportionate sentences. I call for the immediate release of all those arbitrarily detained by the Iranian authorities. And I call for a complete moratorium on the death penalty. I urge the government to end the internet and communications shutdown and to stop using this as a systematic practice.
Due to geopolitical situation, at least 2 European airlines suspended flights to cities in the Middle East on Friday, with Air France saying it will temporarily stop service to Dubai, while according to a Netherlands state broadcaster, Dutch airline KLM also halted flights until further notice to cities in the Middle East and would not fly through the airspace of several countries in the region, including Iraq and Iran. Moving on, Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, said that over 600 inmates have been released. This is far more than estimates by rights groups who are demanding the liberation of all political prisoners. Days after United States ouster of socialist leader Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd, bombing raid on Caracas, the government undertook release of a large number of hundreds of Maduro opponents languishing in prison. The announcement, which was hailed by Washington, created expectations of large groups of prisoners walking free. The US military killed, meanwhile, 2 alleged drug traffickers in a strike on a boat in Eastern Pacific on Friday, while Coast Guard was searching for a third person who survived. President Trump's administration began targeting alleged smuggling boats in early September, insisting it is effectively at war with alleged narco-terrorists operating out of Venezuela. It has, although, provided no definitive evidence that the vessels are involved in drug trafficking, prompting heated debate about the legality of the operations. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has said on Friday that he will speak about bombing seeds of life during his meeting at the White House with the US counterpart Donald Trump on February 3rd. Colombia's Foreign Affairs Ministry also addressed the encounter in a statement on X, saying that the White House would provide head of state guarantees for Petro's trip to United States, while Colombian Foreign Affairs Minister Ross Villavicencio held a telephonic conversation with her US counterpart, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to prepare the meeting between the 2 leaders. Talking about the trade tensions with neighboring Ecuador over anti-drug policy at the border, President Petro spoke about the country's efforts against drug trafficking and said last year was the year with the largest seizure of cocaine in the entire history of the world.
We are becoming more efficient, but we have to teach them over there not to repeat history. Colombia's police have to teach Ecuador's police in the army, etc., how to control the ports, how to keep Ecuador's rural population from falling into the same things we have fallen into, how to keep Ecuador's banker from taking in drug trafficking money, as is happening right now, and how to make sure Ecuador's port and Colombia's port as well are not an entry point via major goods shipments and large merchant vessels for the chemical input used to make fentanyl.
Syria's government took control of a northern prison on Friday following the negotiated departure of Kurdish fighters, which a senior official described as a hopeful indicator that the 2 sides might maintain their truce. Government troops have seized swaths of northern and eastern territory in the last 2 weeks from the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in a rapid turn of events that has consolidated President Ahmed al-Shara's rule. Earlier this week, Shara's forces were amassing around last cluster of Kurdish-held cities in the northeast when he abruptly announced a ceasefire, giving the SDF until Saturday night to come up with a plan to integrate with Syria's army. The deadline is aimed at pushing through a sweeping deal agreed on January 18th that would see the semi-autonomous institutions run by Kurdish forces in the northeast over the last decade join the central state, something the SDF had resisted over last year. The United States and other Western powers are warning Haiti's transitional council against changing prime minister, fearing it would only stoke more instability and hurt the ongoing efforts to combat armed gangs. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke on Friday with Alex Felzheim, emphasized the importance of his continued tenure as Haiti's prime minister to combat terrorist gangs and stabilize the island. Haiti has been blighted for years by such gangs which commit murders, rape, looting and kidnappings. The poorest country in Americas has not held elections since 2016. It's been governed by transitional authorities that have failed to curb the violence. The situation has worsened since the beginning of 2024 when gangs forced the then Prime Minister Ariel Henry to resign. 5 of the 7 members of Presidential Transitional Council want to remove the Prime Minister before the scheduled end of the Council's term on February 7th and appoint an interim head of government. A fracture in the rail appeared to have occurred before a high-speed train derailed in southern Spain. Rail accident investigating body CIAF said in a preliminary report published on Friday. At a news conference, Transport Minister Oscar Fuente said it was reassuring that investigators had working hypothesis on the possible cause just days after the disaster. The conclusions are not final, but they do shed light on the theory that commission technicians currently consider the most plausible. The deadly collision in Ademuz, Cordoba province, killed 45 people in one of Europe's worst train accidents on January 18th. A first train belonging to private consortium, Aereo, derailed and smashed into another oncoming high-speed train from state-owned rail company, Rafael.
A provisional hypothesis has been established regarding the causes of the accident, focusing on a possible break in the rail prior to or simultaneous with the passage of the derailed train, and as I said, a series of provisional conclusions have been drawn. As the provisional hypothesis focuses on a possible break in the rail, the least the ministry should do at this point is explaining to you how the rail was laid, what checks were carried out on the rail, the welds and all the elements of the track, and what control mechanisms were in place after the infrastructure was put into operation.
Rescue operations have ended after deadly landslides struck a holiday park in Mount Maunganui in New Zealand, with efforts now shifting to recovery. Heavy rains triggered the landslide on Thursday, burying camper vans and campsite structures. At least 6 people, including 15-year-old, remain unaccounted for and are feared dead. Authorities say conditions at the site are too dangerous to continue rescue work. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon expressed condolences, assured support to affected families. Questions are being raised over the lack of evacuation despite earlier reports of landslips. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Bangladesh's former leader Sheikh Hasina alleges that elections next month would not be free or fair. Snowfall blankets, hills, rain hit the plains in northern India. And legacy of India's national song, Vande Mataram.
Every time I open my wardrobe, I wonder how many of these clothes do I actually need? So today, let's step into a world where our fashion does not have to come at the cost of the environment.
We make sure that we don't waste a single piece of clothing. We use up all the scraps as well, gathering them into balls and making different products with them.
Consumers think that if they don't buy it now, they're going to regret it tomorrow.
Instead of having a linear thing where you produce something that never degrades and then you just end up having it in the landfill, you biosource it, you use it, and then it biodegrades and gets back to nature.
We use natural dyes for the garments. We extract the dye the way our ancestors did by using natural products with some modifications.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Bangladesh's former leader Sheikh Hasina has alleged that elections next month would not be free or fair. Sheikh Hasina, during an audio message broadcast, said Bangladesh stands today at the edge of an abyss, a nation battered and bleeding. Hitting out at the Yunus government, she said that Bangladesh will never experience free and fair elections until the shadow that Yunus cast is lifted from the people of Bangladesh. The South Asian nation of 170 million people votes on February 12th to choose new leadership after prolonged political turmoil following the overthrow of Sheikh Hasina's government. Meanwhile, in Bangladesh, local textile millers have warned of an indefinite shutdown of spinning units from February 1st if the government does not withdraw the duty-free import facility for certain yarns by the end of the month, raising fresh concerns over labour unrest and export disruptions ahead of the February 12th general elections. At a press conference in Dhaka on Thursday, leaders of the Bangladesh Textile Mills Association, BTMA, said the government would be responsible for any instability resulting from factory closures. They cautioned that a halt in production would make it difficult for mills to repay bank loans and meet other financial obligations. In Pakistan, at least 5 people were killed, 10 others injured in a suicide blast during a wedding at the residence of Peace Committee member in northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa on Friday. The explosion occurred during a wedding at a residence of Dera Ismail Khan Peace Committee chief, identified as Noor Alam Masood. Pakistan's northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, where Dera Ismail Khan is located, is battled a resurgence of terrorist activities carried out primarily by the terror group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The Pakistani government has blamed the Afghan Taliban for providing safe haven to TTP terrorists, saying they use Afghan soil to plan their strikes on targets in Pakistan, while the Afghan government has denied the charges, saying Pakistan's security is an internal problem. Let's turn to some global weather updates. First from India. Fresh western disturbances brought snowfall to the hills and rains to the plains, ending a prolonged dry spell across northern India. Heavy snowfall covered parts of Kashmir Valley, including Kulgam, Srinagar and Anantnag, while Shimla and Manali received the season's first snow. In the plains, Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan and parts of Punjab saw light to moderate rains, lowering temperatures and easing pollution levels. Jammu and Kashmir authorities have issued high-danger avalanche warning for 6 districts following fresh snow in the region. Avalanches are likely above 2,300 meters in Gandarbal district of central Kashmir. A high-danger avalanche alert has also been issued for areas above 2,500 meters in Doda, Kishtwar, Poonch and Ramban in Jammu region and Kupwara in North Kashmir. Residents have been advised to remain cautious and avoid avalanche-prone zones. Also, Jammu-Srinagar National Highway NH44, Mughal Road, SSG Road and Sinthan Road are still closed. People are advised not to travel on these roads until they are completely restored and declared safe for traffic. Amidst inclement weather and heavy snow in Jammu and Kashmir's Udhampur district, a police team rescued 12 individuals, including women and children, who were stranded in the Chochru Gala in upper ridges of Basantgarh area. The operation was initiated after information was received at the Sang police post, leading a team to trek several kilometers through snow-covered and foggy terrain. The rescue was carried out under challenging conditions as many parts of the region continue to witness heavy snowstorm. The police team, led by local officials, successfully navigated the difficult terrain to ensure safety of all stranded persons. And Himachal Pradesh is reeling under severe weather conditions as continuous rains and snowfall disrupt normal life across the state. Landslides and heavy snow accumulation have led to closure of over 500 roads, including 2 national highways, severely affecting connectivity. Power supply has also been badly hit, with 4,700 electricity transformers reported out of service, leaving many areas without power. Restoration work and road clearing operations are being carried out on a war footing, but continuous rain and snowfall are hampering the efforts. The Met Department has forecast light rain with gusty winds at isolated places in Chamba, Kinnaur, Lahaul-Spiti districts, as well as in higher reaches of Kullu and Kangra. No significant weather activity is expected in the remaining districts. Authorities have advised residents and travellers to remain cautious, avoid unnecessary travel in vulnerable areas, and follow official advisories until conditions improve. And DD India correspondent Rachna Verma joins us live from Shimla, Himachal Pradesh. Rachna, Shimla finally gets snow. What does the hill station look like under the white cover? And tourists must be pleased.
Definitely, Shimla has received for fresh snowfall after a very long period, and which has transformed the hill station into a white wonderland. So tourists are very much in an enjoyable state, so as the local people, because it brought a lot of happiness to the local people who cater, the hotel industry, the taxi industries, all the transportations and everything. So yeah, it has converted into a picturesque way, the hill stations, and definitely it brings a lot of joy and happiness to the people.
Also, Rachna, we learned how snow and rains is also a challenging time for Himachal Pradesh. How is normal life impacted?
There is no doubt that that normal life not affected because of the snowfall. As you already mentioned, that there are around 4,000 transformers which is already shut down, and around 2 national highways which is shut down because of the heavy snowfall. And in upper areas like Chamba, Lahaul-Spiti, and Kullu, there is still a warning signs to be a high alert or for the heavy snowfall. Whereas in other regions of Himachal Pradesh, there will be weather will be considered to be a normal. Roads become a little slippery and traffic conditions have been a little distorted, so as the water and electricity supply has been minor disrupted across these things. But administration is trying their best to keep up with keep up the pace to cater all the people. Though the tourists are enjoying a lot, and it become a local residents also coping up with this little minor inconvenience, but I think they are really in an enjoyable state because it's a long-awaited snowfall.
All right, Rachna, appreciate you joining us with those updates from Shimla. Some more weather news. A major winter storm is moving east across the United States, triggering emergency alerts and preparations from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. Heavy snow began falling in parts of Texas and Oklahoma as a powerful Arctic storm spread across the country. The U.S. National Weather Service said over 150 million Americans are under weather emergency alerts. At least 14 U.S. states and Washington, D.C. have declared state of emergency, with authorities preparing for icy roads, power outages and extreme cold. Forecasters warn storm could bring up to 36 centimeters of snow in parts of Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, while Washington, D.C., New York and Boston may receive 4 to 8 inches of snow by Sunday. To commemorate the 77th Republic Day, the cultural arm of High Commission of India, Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, held a musical night at Neelam Pakuna Theatre in Colombo, Sri Lanka. On the occasion, popular Hindi singer Anuradha Podwal performed timeless Bollywood melodies to enthrall the audiences. Members of Indian diaspora as well as Sri Lanka enjoyed the performances. The concert was attended by Minister, Speaker and former presidents as well as officials of the High Commission of India. India's national anthem, Jana Gana Mana, and national song, Vande Mataram, are more than musical compositions. The symbols of the nation's freedom struggle, unity and identity, as India marks 150 years of Vande Mataram Its legacy continues to inspire generations with patriotism and cultural pride.
The national anthem Jan Gan Man and the national song Vande Mataram are not merely songs, but the very soul of India's freedom movement, which fills the hearts of millions of Indians with the spirit of patriotism. Their verses echoed in every movement, rally, and revolutionary struggle during British rule. That is why, after independence, while drafting the constitution, India accorded Jan Gan Man the status of the national anthem and Vande Mataram that of the national song, recognizing them as national symbols. It was on January 24, 1950, India formally accorded the national status to Jan Gan Man and Vande Mataram. While Jan Gan Man symbolizes India's unity and sovereignty, Vande Mataram symbolizes devotion and reverence to the motherland. Both India's national anthem and national song are enduring symbols of Indian culture, unity, and the freedom struggle. Both compositions reflect the nation's proud history and national identity. Jan Gan Man was written and composed by Rabindranath Tagore, originally written in the Bengali language, and was adopted as India's national anthem by the Constituent Assembly. Through this composition, Tagore deeply expressed the diversity, unity, and sovereignty of Indian society. The national song Vande Mataram was composed by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. The song was taken from his novel Anand Mat and was first published on 7th November 1875 in the literary magazine Doordarshan. Vande Mataram recently completed 150 years since its creation. To mark the national song's milestone, the government is organizing year-long programs and activities across India, including exhibitions, musical performances, seminars, and cultural events. The rich legacy of the national anthem and national song, their cultural diversity, and their immense contribution to India's freedom struggle remains eternal. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's turn to some business news now. Japan's yen spiked sharply higher against the dollar on Friday as traders evaluated possibility of an intervention to support the currency, while oil prices settled up almost 3% after rising to their highest in more than a week after Trump ramped up pressure on Iran through sanctions on vessels that transport its oil. In precious metals markets, silver and gold set new records, with silver prices rising above $100 an ounce for the first time, and the gold hitting another record as investors continue to pile into safe haven assets amid geopolitical turmoil. For the week, the S&P 500 fell 0.35%, the Nasdaq declined 0.6%, and the Dow fell 0.53%. In treasuries, prices rose as investors waited for the Fed post-meeting update due on Wednesday. Watching DD India News Hour, time now for all the action from sports. The first leg of Khelo India Winter Games is nearing conclusion in Leh. On day 5 today, host Ladakh, Army and ITBP will be in action in the men's semi-finals of ice hockey, while short track events in various categories of ice skating will continue at the NDS Stadium. Earlier on Friday, host Ladakh and ITBP qualified for the final of the women's ice hockey competition. On an icy day in Leh, 1,000-meter-long track finals for both men and women at the Gubuk Pond were affected due to heavy snowfall, the first in several weeks in the Union Territory. Due to poor visibility, the condition of the 333-meter course, the women's final was disrupted midway, while the men's race had to be postponed. Snowfall is expected to continue in the coming days as temperatures hover between -10 and 12 degrees Celsius. And DD India correspondent Abhishek Prasad joins us live from Leh, Ladakh. Abhishek, what is the latest from Khelo India, and how is Leh emerging as a natural training ground for winter sports in the country?
Yes, Shabindu, the latest I can tell here from Leh is that today is day 5 and Khelo India Winter Games has reached the business end now, and today the temperature is in -12, but honestly it feels like -18, and it's quite chilling out here. And what happened yesterday is that many ice skating matches at the Gupuk Pond were postponed because of heavy snowfall, and the strong winds were blowing yesterday. So, but today the stage is lined up for ice hockey matches in the women's semi-final, And in ice hockey, ITBP, Indian Army, and the host Ladakh are the strong contenders. But in ice skating, states like Maharashtra, Haryana, and from Kerala and Andhra Pradesh are giving tough competitions to athletes from snow regions. So that's the latest update from Khelo India in, Winter Games. And the second part of your question is the Leh has become a very strong winter sports destination for winter sports because here you experience natural conditions. There is a natural ice which is an athlete need for Olympics level. You find natural ice because in frozen lakes, the Gupuk Lake, in winter it gets freeze and in summer it melts. So that what an athlete needs, slippery conditions is there, high altitude is there, low oxygen is there. So what athletes need is to acclimatize in these conditions and to prepare in these conditions. And that's what's happening for, athletes from different parts of the country are coming here and, experiencing all these challenging conditions. And that's what is needed, because when they will go for Olympics level games and Asian Winter Games, they will experience similar conditions like in Italy or in France or in other parts of Europe. So Leh has, just the government plans investments also in Ladakh to make winter sports hub has been phenomenal. The investment they have done over the past 6 years. This is the 6th edition, and this is the third time that Ladakh is hosting one part of the Winter Games, and that's what Ladakh is known for. So government plans are very clearly, they want to promote more and more sports, and that's what visible by the introduction of figure skating in this edition, and the athletes, the participation from different parts of the country.
Okay, Abhishek, enjoy the weather and the games. Thank you for joining us with those updates from Leh. And India produced a batting masterclass in Raipur on Friday night as the men in blue chased down a 200-plus target at record pace to take a commanding 2-0 lead against New Zealand in the 5-match T20 series. Powered by an explosive Surya Kumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan partnership, India sealed the contest with authority.
India stormed to a 7-wicket win over New Zealand in Raipur, scripting a record-shattering chase to go 2-0 up in the 5-match series. Put into bat first, New Zealand posted a formidable 208 for 6 with Sachin Ravindra and captain Mitchell Satner leading the charge. For India, Kuldeep Yadav was the standout bowler with figures of 2 for 35. India's chase got off to a shaky start as they lost 2 wickets inside first 2 overs. But what followed was a breathtaking counter-attack. Ishan Kishan smashed the fastest 50 by an Indian against New Zealand in T20Is, reaching the milestone in just 21 balls. His 76 off 32 completely shifted the momentum. At the other end, Surya Kumar Yadav roared back to form with a sensational and unbeaten 82 off 37 balls, showcasing his full range as the pair stitched together a 122-run stand in just 49 deliveries. Shivam Dubey's 36-run cameo provided the finishing touches to the blazing run chase. India eventually chased down the target in just 15.2 overs, finishing with 28 balls to spare in a record victory ahead of the T20 World Cup. India also registered their 6th successful 200-plus run chase in T20Is, the second most by any team in the format. It also marks the joint highest successful T20I chase for India. The third T20 International will be played in Guwahati on Sunday as India look to seal the series while New Zealand fight to stay alive. Sports Desk, DD India.
And in the Under-19 Cricket World Cup, India will square off against New Zealand on the final day of group stage at the Queen's Sports Club in Bulawayo today. The Ayush Matre-led team had a good start to their campaign as they registered a 6-wicket win in their season opener against the United States Under-19. The team took the same momentum against Bangladesh, beating them by 18 runs via the DLS method. The team has already qualified for the next round and will be looking to extend their winning streak. Meanwhile, New Zealand had both their games against the US and Bangladesh end in no result, currently occupying the 3rd spot in Group B. The Black Caps will be hoping to end the group stage on a high. And play at the Australian Open was suspended briefly as temperatures rose towards an expected 40 degrees Celsius at Melbourne Park. The action started an hour earlier to take advantage of the relatively cool of the morning. but conditions were already stifling. The Australian Open operates under an extreme heat policy that considers air temperature, radiant heat, and wind speed and humidity to assess playing conditions, allowing officials to delay or suspend matches when thresholds are exceeded. When the tournament's 5-point heat stress scale reaches 4 points, players can take longer breaks between sets. 5-point means suspension of matches on outside court and closing the roofs of the main show courts. As a result of extreme heat, the match between defending champion Yannick Sinner and Elliot Spezzeri for 10 minutes. A lantern festival in Zigong, southwest China, lit up the city with more than 200 handmade lanterns featuring mythological beings, horses, and traditional cultural scenes ahead of the Lunar New Year of the horse starting February 17th. That's all in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on your screen and download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.